need something delivered? Do you need dinner? Groceries? Did you forget to stop and buy that bottle of tequila? Postmates is here for you. If you haven't tried Postmates before, we have a great deal for you. Just by setting up a new account and using the code INDIEFOOD, you will be eligible for $100 in delivery fee credits for the first 7 days of your membership. Don't wait. Go to Postmates.com and use the code INDIEFOOD. That's INDIEFOOD. Postmates. Anything, anytime, anywhere. Postmate it.
Are you shopping to find your thing? Is your thing stickers, t-shirts, posters? Is your thing wall art, clothing, home and living, phone cases? Are you shopping for your kids and babies? How about stationery? Many other gifts. You can find all these at Redbubble, redbubble.com. Get the app and save 20% at redbubble.com. Find your thing. Click on the link in the show notes. That's Redbubble, redbubble.com.
Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Everyone Has a Story. I am your host, Nate Wade, coming to you from the locked down state of Idaho. We've got Sharon Glassman on the show today. Fantastic conversation. Hope you stay tuned to listen to that. You'll enjoy it. She is a uplifting, fun person to talk to, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy listening to her as well. Okay, let's talk about what everybody else is talking about. Let's talk about this virus thing. Why, all the governors have, I think, are all 50 states participating in the shutdown at this moment? I'm not exactly sure. If you are, how many people do you think are doing it? Are they actually staying in place, sheltering in place? I know essential employees need to go work, and I don't know about your state, but I'd say probably 80% of the people in the state of Idaho are probably considered essential employees. I'm just saying, I am considered essential. My life has not changed. I get up every day, I go to work, I work 7 to 4, I come home, that kind of stuff. So the rest of my family, they've stayed home. Well, except for my oldest son who works at McDonald's. But if I catch it, or if my son catches it, how does it help the rest of my family who is actually practicing the shelter-in-place statutes? I don't know. Probably doesn't, does it? I don't know. So, but what do you think? Do you like the idea? Do you think it violates the Constitution, or are you for it? I mean, I had a quote that I put up on Facebook the other day, and I do believe it's true. I believe in the Constitution. I believe in liberty. I believe in freedom. But freedom without restraint is anarchy. And that is something that we all need to think about, because anarchy means that I'll do whatever I want, and it doesn't matter if I hurt another person. And that's exactly, I think, kind of what's happening sometimes with this virus when people go out into public. They think I am not going to have this governor or whoever they say they are violate my constitutional rights to do whatever I want. But the Constitution never, ever says you have the right to do whatever you want. It does talk about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Actually, back in the day, it was the pursuit of property, but they did change that wording. But, it doesn't mean that you do that at the sacrifice of somebody else. And so that's what we need to take into account. There are people out there that are immune, they have immune problems and they can't fight diseases as well as other people. And shouldn't we have some respect for those type of people and try to fight this virus as much as we possibly can? It only makes sense to me to do that. I don't know about you. So we're going to try a few different things here at Everyone Has a Story. Try to have a little bit more fan engagement, as it were. So I got a phone number that I've got hooked up to this podcast now. And you can call it if you want to talk to me, and I'll put your voicemail on the on some future editions of Everyone Has a Story. So if you have your own opinions about what this virus has done to our country and how it's affected us, maybe economically or constitutionally, then you can leave me a phone number at 208-450-2972. That's 208-450-2972. Leave a voicemail, and we might play your message on the next episode of Everyone Has a Story. How does that sound? And also, I've created a Facebook group that I think is actually becoming already pretty successful, and I'm excited to see the interaction that's taking place on that group. But if you're interested, I'll leave the link in the show notes, and you can come join the Everyone Has a Story Facebook group. It's just a great place where we kind of, share some more positive things and talk about maybe some of the issues that come up in some of these podcasts. But I've already got a pretty decent amount of people that have joined. And so if you're willing to, if you want to join the Facebook group and maybe get a little bit of encouragement or have some fun discussing some topics, then please feel free to click on the note in the show note, or click on the link in the show notes, and we'll be glad to add you to the Everyone Has a Story Facebook group. Should be fun, right? I think so. And let me tell you, right now is the best time to start a podcast. And I'll tell you why. Because everybody is home doing nothing. You've got a lot of time on your hands. I know you do. So if you want to start your own podcast, there is no better place to do it than Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout has been the place where I've had my podcast since the very beginning. They've had excellent customer service. They've got great prices. So if you want to join Buzzsprout, the better time to do it than now. You can go to the link in the show notes, click on that link, and it will take you to a place where you can sign up for Buzzsprout. They've got different levels depending on how much time you want to spend on your podcast. If you want to do 5 or 6 hours a week, they have one price. If you want to do more than that, they've got another price. So they have different options for you, and they've got a website, what do you want to call that, template, if you want to use that. Just great stats, fantastic customer service. They even do some podcasts to help you grow your podcast. And not only that, you can also sign up for some affiliate links so you can monetize your podcast if you see fit. Great app. So head on over to the link in the show notes, and here goes my phone. I love it when I forget to turn my phone off. Head over to the link in the show notes and click on that, and they will give you, on top of all the stuff that I've already said, they will give you a $25 gift certificate to Amazon.com. That's right, $25 to get you started. Maybe help you buy your first microphones, maybe help you buy a mixer board or whatever you need as far as that's concerned. So don't forget to go click on that Buzzsprout.com link in the show notes and get yourself hooked up on Buzzsprout and get yourself that $25 Amazon gift card. Heck yeah. Well, Sharon Glassman, she comes to us from the great state of Colorado, and she has a fantastic story to share with us, a story of hope and a story of joy. And it was just a fun time talking to Sharon. So without any further ado, let's hear from Sharon Glassman on Everyone Has a Story.
Hello, I'm Kayla Knight, the host of Get Grim, a weekly podcast for the miniature folklorist or teller of tales in your life. Each week, I adventure to adapt several tales around a central theme and share them with my audience, along with my own commentary and background on each story. New episodes are released every Saturday, and I can be found on Apple iTunes or on your favorite podcast app.
I am from the suburbs of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Oh.
On the main line, yeah.
Right. And so what was it like growing up there in good old Pennsylvania?
That's an excellent question. It was very quiet. That's something that I appreciate now as an adult, but as a kid, I found a little spooky.
So you said it was a suburb of Philadelphia.
Yes.
But it was obviously far enough out of the city where it was nice and quiet.
Yeah, it's kind of, I always think of that Gertrude Stein, what is that level of thing about Cleveland? Was it some place where nothing ever happened? There's some like muchness of a nothingness or something. It was kind of an empty place for me personally.
Right.
Not a lot of sparkly fun going on for me, but I was really a book reading under a tree kind of kid, or hanging out in the park and digging up the clay and putting it in my Easy Bake Oven with beads to see what I could make kind of kid. So there was a lot to discover in that silence.
It's a pretty solitary type of a childhood as far as I mean, like you said, you found more entertainment in reading books and that kind of stuff than hanging out with a bunch of friends, or what?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know the word introvert then, and I mean introvert in the most positive way, inner focused with a deep inner life kind of thing, which is a word that I now embrace and fully am as an adult. But yeah, I found happiness more in the little nooks and crannies and little daily magics of life than in the boisterous, let's get the gang together kind of scenario.
Yeah, fair enough. No, that's good. I totally understand that. I consider myself, how do I say it? I know it sounds like an oxymoron, but I consider myself an extroverted introvert. Does that make any sense?
It's not an oxymoron. It's a thing.
Yeah. I can stand up in front of a crowd of hundreds of people and talk, or do this podcast like I'm doing right now. But then I've got to find a place where there's nothing going on and it's quiet and recharge, because I do not get energy from this kind of stuff at all.
I am exactly the same way, and I've done the same thing in my career. I've performed for hundreds, and I've been a public radio essayist, and I'm a performing songwriter now. Mm-hmm. And I'm exactly with you. And I think that's really what defines introversion, is what recharges your batteries and what drains them. So that need to go somewhere quiet after and recharge is, to me, the hallmark of an introvert. And there are so many of us out there in the public sphere that people might not suspect that's how our batteries work.
I totally agree with that for sure. So tell me then, how was your school life, since you were kind of an introvert? Did you fit in school, or how'd that go?
You know, that was my little dog jingling, by the way, that little jingle. I wasn't even aware enough about the social scene to know if I fit in or didn't. I had my couple really good friends. Mm-hmm. And a violinist in the orchestra. And I will tell you a funny story that this is how introversion, I think, for me worked, is that I loved being part of the orchestra, and I loved playing music, and I loved the sense of being in an ensemble. But I wanted to sit in the absolute back row of the second violin section. So if you're familiar with how that works, there's the first violins, and they're sort of like the varsity squad of the violins, if you will. And then there's the second violins, and we're more the JV. And I was like, I want to be here, but I want to hide. So I want to perform, but I want to hide. And our conductor kept having these spot seating tests where he would evaluate you based on how you did. And he kept bumping me up to the front. Yeah. And then the next day I would run back and hide in the back. It was like this constant yin-yang, push-pull of introvert performer. So that was one of my hallmarks of being in school.
So did you ever end up first chair then?
I did in the seconds, and then I would run back to being in the back and hide with my best friend. And then he would kind of say, "What are you doing there?" And I'd be like, "Just don't look at me. I don't, let me do my thing." And I actually ended up writing a whole stage play about that, set in the back row of a community orchestra, where those people who want to both be there and not be there seen live and celebrated them.
Well, but if you don't want to be seen, and maybe not be the best instrument to pick, especially in a full ensemble, because the violins are always usually sitting up front, are they not?
Well, no, technically the
back, aren't they?
The first chair, it's called. So the first stand, the first chair. If you picture the conductor and there are rings, so if you're looking at the conductor to your left, you've got the first violins in the outer row, right? It's a vertical row going back. Right. And next to them, it's second violins, and they also go back. So if you look back to the very end, then you've got what is called the last stand, or the last chairs of each second violin or first violin. I think probably if you didn't, like there's one oboe. If you were going to be the oboe, I think and the oboe also plays the note that tunes the orchestra. That person would pretty much have to be okay with everyone either listening to them or checking them out, because they set the entire tone of the orchestra.
Yeah, my son plays the bassoon, and he generally gets to sit in back, and so he never gets seen except for the top of the bassoon sticking up from above everybody's head. But other than that, he doesn't get seen much, and I think he's okay with that, quite honestly. But
bassoons are cool. That sound is so cool. Yeah,
he's kind of a savant actually with it. I mean, he's crazy good. He's been playing since he was in 6th grade, and I mean, the bassoon at that point was bigger than he was, and his little hands couldn't hit I'm terrible at instruments. What do you call the things when you're hitting? What are those called? Oh my gosh.
I would call them the keys or the buttons, or the little silver things that you're going to press down.
Yeah, and he couldn't even hit him, but I mean, he's done so well, and we've got him lessons and things like that, but he loves, he's the biggest band geek in the world. He does marching band. He's in every single band in high school. He's in the youth symphony here in town. I mean, it's crazy how much he does. So, and he's very sad right now because all of that stuff is shut down. And so there's none of it. He doesn't do anything. He sits in his room and plays on the bassoon a little bit and plays on the computer because there's no music going on right now.
I know. It's a challenging thing. I mean, I was wondering if anybody is starting sort of like an orchestra over Skype where he could be the bassoon and,
Yes.
I think people are going to start getting pretty creative in this condition.
Yeah, I do know a lot of the famous musicians, pop stars and stuff, are actually doing like free concerts over Facebook and stuff, which is kind of cool. So yeah, that's not too bad. Trying to figure out ways to get through this all together. That's for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
So then you got through high school pretty unscathed, that I'm assuming, except for your introversion.
Yeah.
What other stuff were you interested? You were in the band, you said. So you played.
I was in orchestra. Yeah, I was in orchestra. What else was I doing? Reading, probably writing.
Okay.
Playing guitar, definitely playing guitar under the tree in the front yard or in the park, doing my share of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young and that ilk of acoustic pop.
Mm-hmm. So what time frame are we talking about in high school, if you don't mind me asking?
We're talking the late 70s, so a little while ago.
A little while ago. Fair enough. Well, I mean, I was wondering, you said Crosby, Stills and Nash. I'm like, it's probably not an 80s or 90s thing going on there. So
no, I mean, I was a little bit retro even as a kid. So I mean, by the 80s and the 90s, I heard somebody once say, don't know if it's true, that the music you hear when you're about 8 or 10 is the stuff that really becomes the rock solid foundation of what you love. And I think that was really true for me. So there are things I've gone back to or kept going back to through high school into college. Mm-hmm. And also because for a guitar player and singer, they're really satisfying things to play.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's so much that's not guitar based in the music from the 80s on, except for maybe kind of a small 3 or 4 year stint in the 90s where maybe things were guitar driven. It's all pop and synth and not a lot of guitar stuff out there.
No, well, where I live in Colorado, there's an enormous bluegrass community, country bluegrass.
Nice.
So when I moved here from the East Coast, I felt like I was really coming home because I was like, this is acoustic instrument and instrumentalist paradise.
Yeah. Very good. So how did you end up from Philadelphia to Colorado? What happened?
Well, by way of New York City, I graduated college and was very interested in that point in fashion, but not so much just what was in style, but why certain things were trendy at a given time and why we loved certain things to wear and how colors work. So sort of I called it the semantics of style. Mm-hmm. And so I moved to New York City and became a fashion journalist for a while, reporting exactly on that. It was pretty cool. I got to ask people, how high heels worked and why high heels were invented and why we have two kinds of colors red. There's more of a yellow red and more of a blue red. And interesting to find out that women putting on red lipstick thinking that they looked super attractive if they were interested in maybe being attractive to men were actually putting on a color red that other women were like, you look awesome. And so all that psychology of fashion stuff. And I did that for quite a while. Mm-hmm. And moved from that to went to journalism school. And when I graduated journalism school, I had this kind of aha, and it's kind of an introvert aha, where I was being sent out in journalism school potentially to do things that didn't feel good to me. So running up to the person who had a crime committed and asking how they felt. And I was like, I know how they feel. The last thing they need is somebody in their face for me. Yeah. And so I ended up performing stories that I felt really mattered to people across the country. And I would interview people, but I would interview them about their love stories. Mm-hmm. Or I was traveling to Italy a lot at that point, and I found the story of a woman scientist named Laura Bassi who had been lost to history. She was the first female professor of physics in Europe, and she was a poet, and she had a great family life, and Isaac Newton wrote her a love letter, and she was this amazing person, and ended up doing a reported story, intermingling her historical story with the stories of modern women in science across the U.S. I traveled all over the U.S. interviewing women scientists, and then taking those stories and weaving them together and traveling to universities across the country and getting audiences together that were people who were in the science community, but also people who were in the arts who didn't necessarily always hang out together. There was a sort of, I thought, needless divide, and brought them together, called them hybrid audiences, and presented this piece that got people really talking about their lives and their passions. And the role of women in the arts and sciences, and did that for quite a while.
Okay.
And then I created a stage play called Untitled for Orchestra, which I kind of hinted at before, which was set in the back row of a community orchestra, and imagined what it would be like if community orchestras battled it out the way that football teams do.
Okay.
And if they had a competition, and what it was like for these people in the back row, the unsung, literally unsung heroes, propelling their team to victory. And that was performed a bunch. And so I was sort of moving from journalism to the performing arts. I was also had been playing in a community orchestra, doing that thing I told you about, my lifelong thing of hiding in the back.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden I started to think, well, what else can I do with this violin if I wanted to play something else? And I started going through my radio dial and listening to all these different kinds of music, just randomly spinning the dial and being like, could I be a disco violin player? I guess I could. It's not really, I wasn't speaking to me. Could I be, a pop synth violin player? I could be, but not speaking to me. And I came across Vassar Clements in the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. And I was like, this is what I want to be doing. And at the same time, a completely random event made Colorado top of mind for me. And I looked at my dog, BB the Bichon, and I said, America is big and life is short. I've been on the East Coast my entire life. Let's just take this life of ours west. And we ended up in Colorado.
Oh, wow. So how long ago was that?
12 years.
Okay. So you just because, so what was the random event? Do you want to talk about that at all? Colorado was where you wanted to go?
This is the most random thing. And out here, I am technically in Boulder County. And I know you're probably familiar that Boulder County has a reputation for being kind of out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I come from the East Coast. I'm not particularly out there, but I'll just report the story and let you decide how out there was this. So I had a friend who was moving out of state. We're back in New York now, and she was having a garden party in her house in the New York City suburbs. And I didn't know anybody, and I went up there to, support her and her family as they were moving. And I ended up talking to a woman, and she said, so interesting. So you have this background in journalism. You report these true stories. You should look up a company called Wisdom Tool. I bet you could write for them. And they do a lot with business and business stories. And I said, cool. All right, great. Went home, never saw this woman again, and started Googling Wisdom Tools. I think I was back in my office by then, the next Monday. And couldn't find that. And I was Googling, well, maybe she meant storytelling for business. And so I Googled that. And I found a company called The Storytellers. And it said, we are based in the UK. And we have a sister company in Boulder. And literally, when I moused over the word Boulder, all the hairs on my arms went up.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I had that epiphany where I said to the dog, blah, 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 we should go check out Boulder. But then something even stranger happened. And the mail got delivered, both in my office in the East 20s of New York City, near the Flatiron District, and at home on the same day. So I got a letter in my office that said, just a reminder, your lease on this office is over on November 1st. Home to my apartment that I'd been renting for 17 years in Brooklyn Heights. And there was a letter in my mailbox that said, just a reminder, your lease on your apartment is up on November 1st.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not good with signs, like subtle ones, but usually when life hits me over the head like that, I kind of pay attention. And I thought, this seems like a door opening, an opportunity. Came out to Boulder, really felt at home in Boulder County, ended up joining a band as a fiddle player, became a country rock fiddler for several years. I'm a voiceover artist, so that's something that you can do wherever you are, and was doing voiceover work out here just the way I was in New York. And before you knew it, I was an ex-New Yorker living in Colorado.
Wow. So how's that change been for you? I mean, you went from a very populated area in New York and Philadelphia to Colorado, which, I mean, where you're at right now isn't, I mean, it's not like there's no people there. There's definitely plenty of people in the Boulder area, but it's still pretty open spaces compared to what back east would be.
Yeah, and I'm grateful for that every day. I feel like I loved New York with all my heart until the minute I left. I ran over the Brooklyn Bridge every day. which inspired me to read up on the history of the Brooklyn Bridge and how it was built and how bridges are built. Like I'm kind of nerdy that way. I'm still like a reporter. So I loved Brooklyn. I loved New York. I loved every speck of it. Mm-hmm. And I think when I left, I was ready to literally turn the page. And I sort of feel that way in Colorado, where I get up every morning with a view of the mountains, and I'm so delighted and appreciative and grateful and thrilled and awed. And I'm looking at some blue sky outside my window as opposed to another brick building where I might have done that out of my window in New York. Yeah. And I am stoked every single second of every day about that.
Mm. So, then what? And so right now, what are you doing then? You said you were a fiddle player in a country rock band. Is that what you said?
Yes.
So there are all kinds of things in the fire, it sounds like. So kind of give me a gist of, because I got a feeling it's more than one thing.
Yeah. Well, everything, this kind of shaggy dog patchwork narrative that I'm laying out for you has culminated in what I'm doing now. And although I never could have planned it, I don't think I could have started out at point A planning to get where I am now. Looking back, it all makes sense. I feel like everything I was doing was training me to do what I am now. And I am the designer and songwriter of a new line of art prints and t-shirts that literally sing you mood-boosting songs that are crafted for them. And they're called Smile Songs, mm-hmm. the company and the collection. And the reason that I'm creating those is when I was doing my singer-songwriter thing, and my husband, who I met out here, and I have a duo, we have a musical duo that performs my original songs and also really fun standards. We put a bluegrass spin on Frank Sinatra, for example, and Nancy Sinatra. But when we would perform for small groups of people, and I call them jewel box audiences, because I feel each person is a gem. And that lets us have a very personal connection. And people would come up to me and they would say, hearing that song that you wrote makes me so happy. And something about being in this setting and seeing what I'm seeing at the same time also is boosting my spirit. If there was a way that, I don't know how you could combine those. They're saying like not a music video, but something about looking at something in my daily life and hearing the song when I want to boost my spirit. And I thought, well, that's a really interesting assignment, like a creative assignment. Let me think about that.
Yeah.
And my first thought was, well, I could make music boxes, right? I could figure out a way to do that, and then they could hear the song and have a beautiful object in their life. And I went down that road for quite a while. And it wasn't the right answer, but it was the answer that I knew. Like, how do you put music in as an object into people's life? Mm-hmm. And then I was hanging out with a friend, eating tacos, yum, in the next town. And she was a great new friend, and she's really honest, which I really appreciate in life and in friendship and on all levels. But she said, I got to be honest with you. I love your songs. I love what you're doing. I'm not a fan of wood, and I'm not really a fan of boxes. Like, I don't want things on my desk, on surfaces, cluttering stuff up. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, that's liberating, because I'm not having great success. It doesn't, when something's not easy, I'm not saying not hard. I think hard work is great. But when something's not working, when you're kind of bashing your headache up against something.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, what else could I do? And I thought, well, hold on. We're in the digital world right now. We were just talking about that, with artists having live concerts online. What if I design really mood-boosting art prints, and I can use a QR code to embed the song into the art print, so you can scan them with your phone, and you can download the song to your phone and have them on demand. But also, it's like a music box for your wall, right?
Okay.
And so I started doing that and testing them out with people, and they were like, I love this. It is making my day when things are tough. I can look at the message on the art print. They all say inspiring things like, you're beautiful, with a Y-O-U, or thanks to you for being you, or may your bold dreams bloom, things that people really like to hear, but we don't necessarily say out loud all the time. It's not that easy.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, and then I went from there to creating t-shirts with a similar idea and putting the QR code in the label and letting people wear them.
Okay. So
And yeah.
the label, like just the label on the back of the t-shirt or what?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Well, that's where the
Yeah.
QR code is. And then your inspiring sayings are just written on the t-shirt, just like a normal t-shirt.
So the t-shirt is like a normal t-shirt. There, it's almost like a more than just a saying. There's a whole graphic design image. So with the May Your Bold Dreams Bloom t-shirt or art print, it's a flower that's growing and the words are along the stem saying May Your Bold Dreams Bloom. Mm-hmm. And there's a little ladybug down there. And on the art print, the ladybug is interacting with the QR. And on the t-shirt, it's in the inside label of the t-shirt. So you can just scan it, or someone else can scan it while you're wearing it. If you want to do that, it's truly interactive.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was kind of a way of taking all these things I'd learned. The fashion piece, which is what colors make people feel good, what fabrics make people feel good, what designs, what typography. And then the music piece from writing my songs. What messages do people want to hear? My songs are all acoustic, so I wouldn't say what song style. I'm not going to go and create, a big electronic piece, at least not yet.
Yeah.
But putting all those elements together so that your senses are all being delighted or boosted, or you feel good. And of course, there's an introvert song poster and t-shirt, which my introvert cohorts are really digging because it gives you a little amulet when you go outside. You're wearing it's an introvert AF message.
Okay.
And so you go outside wearing your smiling introvert girl t-shirt, and it says introvert AF and the other introverts in the world. That's my doggy. And either smile at you because they get it, or people are like, that's pretty cool. You're owning your innie self. I can live with that. And so people are super nice to you.
Yeah.
So that's my evil plan, is to make the world a nicer place for everybody.
That's your evil plan, huh?
Uh-huh.
That's good. No, so the products that you're making currently are available for, like, you've got prints, you said, that you can put on walls.
Uh-huh.
And then t-shirts. Is there anything else that you've got going?
Yeah, there's greeting cards, which are like miniature art prints that you can send around to people and make them happy. Mm-hmm. There are some pieces of jewelry that are engraved, and with those, I'll actually send you the QR code and the link to the song separately, because I haven't figured out a way yet to engrave a QR code on jewelry, just because QR codes need to be a certain size for them to work, and jewelry is pretty small.
Yeah.
And there's some digital prints that you can get, which probably in these times are good, so that you don't touch anything. You can just get the digital. There's a certificate of personal bravery that's personalized with your name and what it is that you did that you were scared to do, and who it's from, and it sings you a super fun song called I Did the Thing I'm Scared to Do.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. So you've been pretty successful at this? People been pretty excited about it?
Yeah, it's just starting. And again, I work in that sort of jewel box world of small groups of people who are wildly passionate about this kind of connection. And yeah, so far, knock wood. Do I have any wood in here? Hold on, I'm going to go knock on the closet. Knock wood, things are going really well. And I'm very excited to be growing the line and carrying people to messages and offer gifts that people can give to the folks that they love in their life.
That's really exciting. That's really cool stuff. And on top of that, you're still playing music around the area and stuff like that?
Oh, yes. Yes. Obviously, our gigs right now are on hold, our live gigs, but we have a winery up in Estes Park that's sort of our home base in the summer. And we go up there and stand on a flatbed. My husband and I, our band is called the Jamesons, named after a certain beverage, or in honor of it, I guess. And it's great. And there's the water is flowing behind us, and the sun is shining, and people are drinking wine and eating cheese and crackers and smiling, and it's just a delight. So yes, still doing that.
That sounds a lot of fun. Estes Park is a beautiful place too. That's kind of living the dream right there, what you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very grateful, and it is really living the dream. It's a real, what's the word I'm looking for? A gift, I guess, to be able to do things I love with people I love in a place that I love, and to feel like I'm making a positive difference by letting people know that there's somebody out there who sees their best self. That's another thing I feel is really important in everything that I do, is acknowledging the goodness in the folks around me and the folks that they know and love.
That's good. That's good. Have you started your own podcast, or do you have a podcast, or you thought about it or anything?
I have had a podcast. I did an audio fiction podcast in Colorado called Blame It on Hoboken.
Okay.
And it's a full-on, you might enjoy it. I think you would enjoy it, actually. It's a music-driven mystery set in Frank Sinatra's hometown.
Oh, okay.
And it's a story it's a love story, and it's a story about following your dreams. And what happened is I'd started to write it before I left New York as a novel. And I had published a book previously based on one of my traveling stage stories. It was a Christmas-centered book called not Blame It on Hoboken, Love Santa, and a show. And I would travel around the country with letters from families and kids in need at holiday time, and tell folks how I had answered them, and not being a mom had perhaps gotten something really wrong in one of my kids' letters and felt like the world's biggest dork, but in the end that giving was what mattered. And that project helped lots of folks help kids and families in need, which again was the point. I sort of used my mistakes as my secret weapon to let folks go, oh, if she can do it and it's not perfect and it's okay, maybe I can do that.
There you go.
Yeah. So I then had written this novel with a similar theme about folks trying to live their passions and being a little bit outside the norms, and being dorky and adorable and wonderful and falling in love. And there was a piece missing when I moved to Colorado, and I didn't know what it was. And then I really started playing live music, and I realized, well, I'm doing a novel where music is a character. There should be songs.
Yeah.
And so that's how I started a project called the Lazy Person's Book Club. And I teamed up with the local bakery, and every Wednesday night at 7, you could come bring your lawn chair, sit out on the lawn of the bakery, and eat a sweet treat and drink a glass of wine or beer or water, whatever you wanted. I would perform a new episode of the novel and then write a song for that episode. And I did it every week for 13 weeks. And then from there I went, wait a second, I could do a weekly podcast and get local actors and non-actors to play these parts, and we can publish it on our local independent newspaper's website, which we did, and then on radio stations around the country, which we did. And then I did an audiobook version, which was published by Blackstone Audio.
Yeah.
And then the podcast is still out there. It's on iTunes. It's either under the Lazy Person's Book Club or under Blame It on Hoboken. And you can hear a little 6-minute episode in installations, and that'll take you through the whole story. So it's sort of like old time radio meets new digital podcast world.
Wow, that sounds fun. I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah, I'd love to hear what you think about it. It was so much fun. And it was great to be able to walk up to people on the street and say, is that a bit of a New Jersey East Coast accent I'm hearing?
Yeah.
And they would say, as a matter of fact, it is. I moved here from blah, blah. And I'd be like, hey, you want to come over to my home studio and act in my audio fiction podcast that's set in New Jersey? And I made a ton of friends, and we had a tremendous cast party with tons of Italian food, and created a community.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome.
It was really awesome. It was again, it's all part of living the dream out here. And I think the same is true. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I guess more of a question. Do you find that you're creating a community as well with the people that you're interviewing and other podcasters that you discover?
Yeah, with the people, there's a few people that I've interviewed that we've kind of kept in touch. When Charles, you were talking about, you checked out her podcast. She and I have kept in touch, and then there's a few others. Some of them, I interviewed him once, and that's it. That's the last I've ever heard from him. But there is a really big, large community of the independent podcast community out there. we help build each other up as best we can. We run each other's promos on each other's podcasts, and I've never met any of these people face to face, but we've become pretty good friends, at least on Twitter. So it is fun. It's great to create community. And one of the things that I've tried to accomplish with this podcast is to try to, bridge that gap, to make the world a little bit smaller, to let people know that we may be different. We may live in a different place. We may have different political backgrounds or religious backgrounds, but we're going to find something that we're probably going to be able to relate to that person. And in doing so, I hope we just, bring each other a little bit closer, because we live in such divisive times right now that it's always good to meet people. And, if you stay away from some of those touchy subjects, you're probably going to like the person.
Yes. I don't know if you're familiar with the Ben Franklin's point of view that people usually agree on 70% of everything.
Yeah. I think I've heard that.
I don't know if it's apocryphal or not, but I love that idea that there's probably 70% of everything that we agree on. And if we look at that, I think then that even in divisive times helps us find community and commonality, which we really need.
That's absolutely right. We're all humans, right?
Yep.
And I think what's going on right now with this virus scare that we're all dealing with, we're all realizing that even though we can't touch each other right at the moment, we still need each other. And I think
that's so well said. Yes.
Yeah, we're all very frail, and we think that that we're stronger than we are. But when we get to a position like this, we absolutely realize that we are interdependent upon each other, and so hopefully, things change, and we can have a little bit better world.
Yeah,
I don't know if that was very eloquent, but hopefully I got my point across.
No, I think that was beautifully said, and you reminded me of. I don't know if you're a fan of the movie Harold and Maude.
Oh, I love that movie. Love it. Yep.
You remember when Harold says to Maude, "You really get along with people," and she says, "They're my species."
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
It's that. I think that's one of the most profound things I've ever seen, heard. Like, that just stays with me. I was like, yeah, come on, we're the same species. I mean, it can be a challenge to reach out to people when we believe that we don't have things in common, but the fact is we do.
Absolutely. You bet. At the foundation, the basics, we all have to have things in common. And we may disagree on our politics. We may have disagreements on a religion or all those divisive issues that we've managed to create through the course of our human existence. But in the end, we all have things in common. We have life. We want to love. We want to be cared for. Those are the things that are human basic needs. And I think we can find some common ground in there somewhere. Absolutely.
And I think to your point that podcasts like this really can help with that, because from the second I heard your voice on Wynn's podcast, I was like, I love him. He's awesome.
Aw, thank you.
It's just that human react. Again, you're my species. We're the same species. We're all the same species. But it was like to hear people, I think, immediately gives us so much information, and mostly, I think, usually positive information about who they are, what key they speak in, live in, their way of speaking, their choices of words. All of that is so positively powerful, I believe.
Oh, yeah. People are endlessly fascinating, Yep. And I guess that's why I started this podcast. I mean, I may be an introvert, but I find so much joy in going and sitting at the mall or sitting at the airport, because I travel a lot for business. It is so much fun to sit in the airport and just watch people and see different kinds of people, see how completely different we are, but then see all the similarities, whether it be our physical features are similar or just our personality or our quirks. There's not that many out there, quite honestly. There's not that many different personalities. But it's so much fun. People are endlessly fascinating to me.
Yeah, I think your perspective, being able to travel, I love that idea of being able to move through the world, technically on assignment for work, but actually getting the bonus of being the observer of humanity in all these different places that you might not necessarily go, and getting all that positive information and insight.
Yeah, I do feel I'm 45 years old. I've never traveled out of the country. I really want to be able to do that. In fact, I hadn't traveled out of the Intermountain Northwest until probably, well, until I took this job. So before that, I mean, the farthest away I'd ever went was California, but now I went, clear over to Maine and all over the country. So I've got a pretty good perspective on this country, but I really want to travel outside of the United States and stop thinking in such a Western mindset, in this kind of, I don't know how to say it, but just kind of self-centered Western mindset that we tend to have in the United States. You know what I mean?
I think everything that we do to broaden our horizons broadens our minds. Yes, absolutely. Just to see more, to know more, to experience more, and to grow more. It's like vitamin travel.
That's a good way to put it. I like that. Vitamin travel. Yes. Get your big dose of vitamins. That's for sure.
Oh, yes. Yeah. When we're talking in a healthy future where we're all able to move around. But I think it's really important in these times where we don't have as much mobility, like you said, to make those plans and go, you know what? Again, it's a big, beautiful world. The more of it that we can see, the more people that we can get to know, the more we develop compassion and excitement and fraternity, I guess, or sorority, whatever, and interconnectedness.
Either way, that's for sure. Well, Sharon, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. I'd like if I remember, I kind of like to end my podcast with a couple of rather frivolous questions. Are you up for it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. The first question then is, who is your favorite superhero?
Oh, great question. I kind of love the latest Wonder Woman. She's pretty awesome. Gal Gadot.
Yeah. Okay. And why exactly?
Her strength and positivity, but also this kind of steely grace, and I think kindness.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good point. Very kind. In fact, that kind of sets her apart from the rest of her tribe, doesn't it? Her kindness, I think. It feels like it.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say Jessica Jones, but
yeah.
She's like if I can have like Wonder Woman and Jessica Jones, as my two flavors of superhero. But yes, I do think that Wonder Woman's kindness, a lot of them, I mean, Captain America is pretty darn kind. Mm-hmm. And Iron Man is hilarious. Mm-hmm. So there's something to love in all of them. But I think that was just my first response, was just thinking about that. There's like it's not upright. It's not the word I'm looking for with Wonder Woman so much, but just an intention like she's got her feet on the earth when she's not flying and is looking to do good in the world. And boy, is she strong and uses it for good reason.
Yeah, I think she's strong in real life too. She seems like a very, very proud person in real life, and strong and graceful, and I mean everything, the whole package. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So next question: who is your favorite band or musician? It doesn't have to be a band.
Who is my favorite musician? There are so many. Who makes me jump up and down? Big Billie Eilish fan right now. I gotta confess.
Yeah. Good.
I was pretty excited yesterday. I said to my husband, because I got a pair of, I was wearing a pair of oversized jeans and a really ginormously oversized velour hoodie. And I said, is this my Billie Eilish look? I'm going to say it is. I wish it could be. So I love her. I love the Johnny Mercer, who's a lyricist who wrote a lot for Frank Sinatra, and Harold Arlen, who was his composer team, but also I'm giving you four. Cindy Walker, who was a Western music songwriter and singer who wrote a lot of the songs for the cowboy movies, and Bob Wills. She is a genius lyricist and musician, songwriter, and she's buried under a pink guitar in Nashville.
That's awesome. I've never heard of her.
Oh, check out her stuff, and then you'll be like, I didn't know she wrote that. I didn't know she wrote that. You'll know the songs if you.
There's a lot of people like that, like Prince. That's another one. I mean, of course, he has a plethora of his own songs that he sang, but then you look at all of the songs he wrote for other people. I'm like, holy cow, I didn't realize those were all his songs. He's an amazing songwriter.
Yeah, he's incredible. It was incredible. I love him to pieces.
Yeah, I did too. One last question, and then we'll let you go, okay?
Okay.
All right. Your favorite piece of advice that you've ever been given?
Wow. Oh, Nate, that's so good. I might circle back to Maud.
Okay.
People are my species. Like, to really focus with love and compassion, because we are all one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she embodied that in that movie. I mean, she loved life to its fullest.
Yes.
Whether it's people or whether it's the tree she saves from the middle of the city and goes to replants out in the country, whatever. She loved life.
Yes. And all that kindness and gentleness and her way of seeing things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looking at the little tree, which is kind of, again, like the Charlie Brown little Christmas tree thing. Those moments, maybe to live like everyone is the little tree, either in Harold and Maude or in Charlie Brown Christmas Special.
That's good. I think we'll leave it at that. Sharon, thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast. I truly appreciate you being on.
Nate, thank you so much. It's been a delight to discover you, and I love what you're doing, and I love your focus on the real stories of real people. It's really what makes life so wonderful and positively powerful.
Well, there you go. Sharon Glassman on Everyone Has a Story. If you are interested in getting in touch with Sharon, you can find her on some various social media platforms, and you can find all of those links in the show notes. Get in touch with some of her songs. They're pretty cool. She sent me a card in the mail thanking me for having her on the show, and I truly appreciate that, Sharon. And on that card was one of those QR codes that she was talking about, and I scanned it, and it was a great, cool little song, and I truly appreciated it. It definitely did bring a smile to my face. Thank you, Sharon, so much for being on the show. Truly appreciate it. If you are interested in sharing some comments about this episode that you've just heard for any reason, you can call the phone number 208-450-2972 and leave a voicemail, and we'll put that message on the next episode of Everyone Has a Story. If you want to join the Facebook group of Everyone Has a Story, feel free to do so. You can find the link to that in the show notes as well. You know what? And, by the way, there is merchandise. You guys want to buy a cool EHAS t-shirt or coffee mug? I've got one of those coffee mugs. That's actually a lie. I don't. But I do have a couple that I've given away, and I've seen them firsthand. My son actually won one off of me on Twitter, so congratulations to him. And it is a really nice coffee mug. So don't hesitate to get yourself some of the merch. And I hope you guys are staying safe. I hope you guys are practicing as much as you can that social distancing. I know it is kind of hard sometimes, especially when you need to go shopping or go get your medication, or even if you're an essential employee such as myself. But try to practice it as much as you can. Maybe this is overblown. That's for people that get paid a heck of a lot more money than me to decide. But I do know that it is serious, and we should take it as seriously as we possibly can. Stay safe, everyone. And remember, everyone has a story. Everyone is unique. And I want to know what your story is. So please get a hold of me, because this podcast does not exist unless we have people like yourselves that are willing to share your story. This is Nate Wade, wishing you the best of weeks. We'll talk to you later. Have a great day.
Indie Blast Podcast Network.